Hi there, good noon and welcome to another session in this series called Last Lap to CMAT. And so far, you and I have worked a lot on English. Today, we are getting an opportunity to look at these verbal reasoning questions. So, you know that the exam has 4 sections. One of them is language comprehension, but then I am not going to talk about language comprehension today. I am going to talk about those questions that are based on something called verbal reasoning. So it's basically those aspects of reasoning that are based on logic. So those are the ones that you and I will go ahead and cover today. So here is that agenda for you. So I welcome you to BYJU'S Exam Prep channel dedicated to your success as an MBA aspirant. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press that bell icon so that you do not miss out on any session whatsoever. My name is Vikrant. I have been helping students reach their dream B schools for 22 years now. And in this time period, I must have helped thousands of people move towards their goals. And I am your personal coach for all things related to language and communication. And as you can see, verbal reasoning, because that's also kind of related to language. So if you have any questions pertaining to verbal reasoning, please make sure that you ask about those things today, and I'd aim at addressing most of these. So when we talk about verbal reasoning, there are these different question types that we typically end up getting in the exam. Let's have a look at what we had in CMAT 22. So we had 20 questions in logical reasoning section. Out of those 25, which is basically 25% of the section, belonged to verbal reasoning. So what all questions? They at times ask us things like reason assertion. I personally don't think of them as reasoning, but more on that later. Then you have these odd one out questions, but then we have already covered these in our language comprehension class, so I'm not going to talk about these here. You remember I covered a lot of different questions, and within odd one out there were these 2 questions that were not exactly odd word out questions. 4 states, 4 planets, those questions. So those are the kind of things that you can get here. Then you can get verbal analogies and analogies in general. So typically when I look at these 3 question types, when the second odd one out and the third analogy, when they're part of language comprehension, they're driven by words. But here, when they're part of reasoning, they are basically driven by, in a way, general knowledge. But then you also have these statement assumption questions. That's pure reasoning. So we basically look at, so this is basically a snapshot of what was asked last year. In this class, I'd actually take you beyond. We plan to look at, of course, assertion reason. We've looked at analogies, odd word out, so we won't get into those again. We talk about statement assumption, but we will also talk about these 4 more question types that have been asked in the CMAT over the course of last few years, right? So John says, when can we expect the admit cards? Hey, anybody from the team who's listening in, could you, if you have some latest to share, could you please drop it in the comment box? Thank you. So John, somebody will be up to it. Ideally, I mean, you shouldn't even be waiting for it by now. So by now you should have that clarity. But let's see. Okay, so let us start with assertion reason questions. Now, because the question happens to have reason in its name, we tend to, and it is also generally asked in the logical reasoning section, we tend to think of it as a reasoning question, but in reality it is a GK question, and I'll tell you why. Let's have a look. So in this particular question, we are given 2 statements. One of them is called assertion, the other one is called reason. Now look at the answer choices and it will be really evident. So A, both A and R are true. Let's just focus on the first half. B, both A and R are true. C, A is true, R is false, A is false, R is true. Now this act, whether A is true or not, R is true or not, is GK. Let's have a look. So assertion here says silver has long been used in the manufacture of coins, ornaments and jewelry. True or false? So that's GK, right? It has got nothing to do with logic. Is that true? Yup, true. And reason, silver is malleable, ductile, and resistant to atmospheric oxidation. So malleable is something that can be beaten into different shapes. Huh? The parents in a lot of households think we are malleable. पीट पीट के अलग shapes बनाते रहते थे हमारी, टाइम पास करते थे हमारे साथ. हाँ, ductile, something that can be drawn into wires, and resistant to atmospheric oxidation. Now, this is something that I read in my science class in school where they taught us metals. So yes, I know silver is malleable, it is ductile, it is resistant to atmospheric oxidation. So this is also true, but this is all GK. Okay. Now the other deal is, now that we have established both of these are true, options C and D are ruled out. That leaves us with A and B. So is this reason the correct reason for whatever has been mentioned in the assertion? Is silver used in manufacturing of coins, ornaments and jewelry because it is malleable, ductile and resistant to atmospheric oxidation? Yes. In fact, that is the reason why it has been shaped like all these different forms. Had it not been malleable, who would really go ahead and put in all that effort? So it is indeed the right reason as well, and that is why most of you have actually gotten it right. The correct answer is indeed option A. But as I said, this is GK, dude. This is not really reasoning. But now you know the question, at least it will not surprise you in the exam. Here is one more question of this type. Why don't now you go ahead, read it and share your answer with me in the chat box down below. Come on. What's the answer, guys? Come on. Okay, so Mayank has been really quick in giving the answer to me. Damn, and now you know, is this assertion true? Did she get the Nobel Prize for Literature in 22? Damn, use reasoning to tell it. You can't. So either you know it or you don't. So yes, this assertion is true. No, she is in fact the Nobel laureate. So the assertion is right. But then, what's her answer? Then let's look at B. My bad. Let's look at B. Annie Ernaux is the most famous woman writer from France. Now, is she the most? I mean, frankly speaking, and probably it is bad on my part, I had not heard of her before she got the Nobel Prize, and I'm into reading, okay? I know a lot of authors, right? So I know plenty of French writers that I admire. Speaking from the top of my head, Albert Camus is somebody that I really loved during a particular phase of life. Jules Verne, Around the World in 80 Days. Jean-Paul Sartre, Victor Hugo, Alexander Dumas. All of these are much bigger, and even when I talk about women writers, I don't know whether you have heard of her or not, but Simone de Beauvoir is a really big name in literature and in philosophy. So to say that she is the most famous woman writer from France, that will not be right. Moreover, it is not the reason for the assertion as well. B can also be termed false, and the moment I term this false, I think our answer is pretty obvious. We should go ahead and mark it as C, but then it requires some serious amount of GK. So C for question number 2. She's not the most famous for sure. Okay, there are other French women writers. I talked about one of those, Simone de Beauvoir, who's definitely more famous. And people world over do know her. Notice from France, so it has to be looked at from the POV of everybody, right? So that is that. And with that, let's move over to our next type, statement assumption. Now we are in the domain of reasoning for sure. So do you know how to approach these questions, or would you want me to give you inputs on that? So keep telling these things, okay? Keep sharing these things. So what does the examiner do in the statement assumption questions? You're typically given a statement. This statement is followed by, why is that happening? Hang on. So you're given a statement, and the statement is followed by a couple of assumptions. What is an assumption? An assumption is an unstated premise. An assumption is supposed to be the reason or the basis for this particular statement. For example, let's say that a friend of yours what should I talk about? Let's say a friend of yours had a breakup and he's gloomy and dull and depressed. So you go ahead and you offer some advice to your friend about how he can overcome these things, how he can rise above it all. अपनी बारी में फाइट होती है अपने को, दूसरों की बारी में अपन बहुत ज्ञानी है ना, अपने को सब बताना आता है ना. So Anu, yaar, it's actually sad. You should by now have gotten the admit cards, or at least should have been in a position to download it, but it should happen soon, don't worry. So coming back, you give advice to your friend. Now, whenever we give advice to our friend, you realize it is based on a couple of things. The first one is, we believe that our friend is likely to, or there are at least chances that our friend will listen to our advice or may act on our advice. If we believe that he won't listen, he won't act, we'd not even advise. And the second thing that we believe is that, whatever we are saying, the advice that we are offering is actually relevant, is actually going to work, isn't it? So there are these two fundamental assumptions behind offering advice to anybody. So what I have seen, what I've experienced in exams like CMAT, in exams like Maharashtra CET, is that there is something called a negation test. This works very beautifully. All that you do is negate the assumptions, okay? Take the opposite of these assumptions to be true, right? And then see whether this statement can still be made or not. So if the statement can still be made even when you reverse the assumption, then it was not the assumption involved behind that statement. It did not act as a basis. On the other hand, if you negate the assumption and you can no longer make the statement, now you know that this was definitely needed. So let's have a look. So the northern part of India has seen record temperature rise in almost all its territories. First, temperatures cannot go higher in the northern part of India. Now let's reverse it. The reverse will be temperatures can go higher in the northern part of India. Can we still make this statement? Can we still say that we have seen record temperatures? Yes. So first is not an assumption. Second, temperature has generally been low in the country. Let's reverse it. Temperature has generally been high in the country. Now can we still make the statement? Yes. Which means that even second is not an assumption, and that is why our answer to this particular question should be option D. So now that you know about negation test, here is a question for you to attempt. Please negate and then tell me whether it is an assumption or not. Go ahead. Come on, fast. Okay, so I have 3 answers so far, which is enough for me to start my discussion. So, if you do not swim while the ship is sinking, you would drown. So first, human beings cannot survive under water. So let us see, let's reverse it. Human beings can survive underwater. If I reverse it, can I say that you would drown? No, I will no longer be able to say that. Now, it does require the understanding or the clear understanding of the word drown. Drown means to die by being underwater because you are unable to breathe. So if human beings can survive, this statement can no longer be made. So first is definitely an assumption. How about second? Water bodies will not let humans live underwater. Is this necessary? Even if you negate it, water bodies will let humans live underwater. This statement can still be made. You can live there, but you may require special equipment, special tools, special machines, special housing. Right? So even if you reverse it, you can make it, and that is why the answer here, as a lot of you have said, is option A. Second is not needed. Let's see, just reverse it. Water bodies will let humans live underwater. Now, does that mean that if you live underwater, you can live without any special gear as well? No, the statement does not talk about that. Right? And that is why even when we negate the second assumption, the statement can still be made. And thus, the answer should be option A. With that, let's now move over to our next question type, which is syllogisms. So I hope all of us remember syllogisms, or those all A are B, all B are C kind of questions, right? So here are a couple of them for you. So question number 5, go ahead, solve this, and then we will talk about it. Go ahead, come on, tell it to me, share it to me. Okay, so Mayank has given his answer. Let's see what else we get here. Okay, so now that we have the answers, let me create some room, some space, and then we will be able to work. So here is the set of statements. So let's draw Venn diagrams. That's how we generally solve these. So all minions are rats, some rats are swines, some swines are running. Okay, so that's a set of rats. Now we're saying some rats are swines and some swines are running. I have not drawn the first statement. Let's draw to all minions are rats. So that's where your minions go. So all minions are rats. Some rats are swine. Some swines are running. Now this is known as the minimum overlap diagram. So this shows the minimum overlap, the least amount of overlap possible among different categories. Now let us start checking our conclusions. So first, some minions can be running. Now you notice in this particular case, minions, let me just choose a different color. So minions and running are completely separate in this case. But you notice when you say all minions are rats, minions and rats can be equal. When you say some rats are swines, rats and swines can also be equal. And some swines are running, swine and running can also be equal. right? So there is a possibility that minions overlap with running. Possibility. Is it going to be true in every case? No. But then the conclusion is not even asking us for something which is definitely true. The conclusion is asking can be running. Is it possible that minion and running overlap? Yes, it is possible. Therefore, this is valid. Okay, let's look at second. No rats are running. No rats are running. So in the minimum overlap diagram, it is true. But then look at this other diagram that I've drawn, which is popularly called, which I'd call the maximum overlap diagram. So the second conclusion happens to be true in the minimum overlap diagram, but then it is false in the maximum overlap. What does that tell us? It tells us that no rats are running is not true. It is a possibility, yes, but you cannot say that it is definitely true. And such conclusions which are can't say are considered invalid, so they are out of reckoning. Some rats are not running. Once again, true in the minimum overlap, but false in the maximum overlap. Therefore, even this is invalid. And thus, only first conclusion is valid, which means that we should have no hesitation in choosing D as our answer. So D it is for question number 5. The key takeaway for you is, in case you're not somebody who's familiar with syllogisms, we solve them using Venn diagrams, but we do not draw all the cases. We draw the minimum overlap diagram, and after that, depending upon the conclusion that we are evaluating, we draw a maximum overlap diagram. Any conclusion which is true in both is valid, is our answer. Otherwise, it is not our answer unless the conclusion uses words like can be, possible, etc. Okay. So here is a question that I want you to solve now. Go ahead, share your answer. Okay, fantastic. So let us go ahead and start evaluating, start checking. So here are our diagrams. So all basics are mandatory. All mandatory are, it's too bad, huh? The circle was way too bad. Okay, all mandatory are important and all important are new. So this is our minimum overlap diagram. Let's check first. Some new are not basics. False. Why am I calling it false? Here is new, here are basics. So you notice some part of new is inside basics. Okay, well then some part of it is outside. So it is true in this case. But then let's look at the maximum overlap. In maximum overlap, all the four, okay, basics, mandatory, important and new are going to be equal. So the first conclusion is false here. Therefore, first is ruled out. That's not our answer. Okay, the first one. Second, some important are basics. So let's just clear up some space. Some important are basics. It is true here and it is also true here. So in the minimum overlap, it is true. In the maximum overlap, all the important are basics. So obviously some important or basics will be true. So this is valid. And now let's look at the third and the last one. No basics can be important. What we are saying is that basic and important will never overlap. As you see, it is false in both the cases. So even this is invalid. So only the second conclusion is true. First is can't say. Right? It's a possibility, not a certainty. So invalid. Second is true, therefore valid. Third is absolutely false. It is not going to be true in any of the Venn diagrams that you draw. So it's definitely out. And therefore our answer should be only second follows, D. Now let me see how many of us got that. So I think, who all got this? I think Chinmay got this right. Nidhi, Sonali, Nancy, Pratik. These are the Sayak, John, Prajol. These are the guys who definitely got it right. A lot of us got fooled by first. You got fooled by it because you perhaps drew only the first diagram, the minimum overlap, and you forgot to look at the others. So anything which is true in minimum overlap should not be chosen as an answer. Okay, go ahead and draw the maximum overlap diagram as well. And if it turns out to be true in maximum overlap, only then choose that as your answer. Okay, the next one, logical consistency. So these are kind of syllogisms with an addition. So they test your understanding of connectives like or, and, if then, etc. Okay, so here is your first question. Why don't you go ahead, solve it, read the directions, solve this, and if you do not know what they stand for at all, then please ask and I'll talk about it. Sorry. Okay, so Sonali has shared an answer. She has set the ball rolling. Give me two more answers so that I can at least start talking about it. Okay, so I have one more answer. Kriti, one more answer needed. One more answer. Come on. Okay, I have three answers. So let's see. Either there is a rat or a pig. So we typically look at these as P or Q relationships. Now in P or Q relationships, there are two cases that are true. Which two? Negation of P implies Q and negation of Q implies P. And negation basically means opposite. So in this case, P or Q is what? Rat or pig. So what are the two cases which are true? Not a rat, implying it is a pig, which is DC. Okay. And the other one is not a pig, implying it is a rat, which is BA. So DC and BA are the two options, two sequences, two directions which are valid. Now I don't see BA anywhere. So CD is gone, AB is gone, DC is given as B. So this should be the answer, and I guess Mayank has gotten this right. The rest of us need a bit of work. Okay, crude example. What if I tell you that I had, or before the session started, I had tea or coffee. Now, or in logical consistency means at least one of the two. Okay. So if I had tea, I may or may not have had coffee. If I had coffee, I may or may not have had tea. But I definitely take one, maybe both. If you know that I did not take tea, you know that I definitely had coffee because I will have at least one, right? Similarly, if you get to know if I did not take coffee, you can infer that I took tea. So this is the formulaic representation. Okay. So Nali, I've just shared this in P or Q relationship. Let's say in tea or coffee, we can actually take some other example. Let's say, what if I tell you that I'll go to the market and buy a t-shirt or a jeans, a pair of jeans. Okay. Now, where or means at least one. Okay. Or has two different meanings. So at least one means I can buy only t-shirt, only the jeans, or both. Right. So if I've bought a t-shirt, I may or may not have bought the jeans. Both of these are possible. But if I did not buy a t-shirt, I definitely bought a jeans. Now, because I have to talk about it, it basically means that you may not have gone through the basics. Now, this is not a class where I can really dive into the basics of this topic. So please make do with the formula that I have shared with you for the time being. And if you need more help, reach out and we would love to assist you. I'll see if we can conduct a session for this for some of you. So AB is not equal to BA when it comes to our relationships in logical consistency. Okay, here is the next one. So answer was B, DC. Here is your question number 8, which tests your understanding of if then relationships. Or in case you don't reach out to me, I think Mayank can take out some time and teach it to the rest. But do reach out if you need more inputs. So what's your take for question number 8? Okay, I have my 3 answers. So whenever you see if then relationships, just look at this. Think of these as if P then Q. Okay, fair enough. So I'm not getting into much detail here, but these two relationships are true. P implies Q and negation Q implies negation P. So in this case, people do not follow guidelines is your P. They make mistakes is your Q. So see, people did not follow guidelines, P. People followed guidelines, negation of P. People did not make mistakes, that's negation of Q. People made mistakes, that's Q, right? Now see, these are the two relationships which are true. So P implies Q, that is AD. And negation Q implying negation P, that is CB. Do you have AD here? Yes. Do you have CB here? No. So therefore our answer here is option C, and I'm absolutely amazed that after the debacle of the previous question, almost everybody, should I say almost? No, everybody, I do not even need to add almost. Everybody got it right. Good job, good job, good job guys, good job. Here is the next set, sentence jumbles. So here is the question. So unlike parajumbles where you have different sentences and you need to arrange them, it's a single sentence which is broken into 4 parts. And your job is to rearrange those parts to make a meaningful, coherent sentence out of these. So go ahead and answer question number 9. In case you face issues, I'd probably tell you more. Fantastic, fantastic. I have 3 answers. So I think one of the simplest ways of approaching it is that your options, arrange them in certain ways, and because you're dealing with just a single sentence, read all the 4 arrangements, and more often than not you'll know what is right and what is wrong. And in this question all of you are right. The answer is indeed D. So I won't need to talk about it. Here is one more for you to practice. Question number 10, give it a shot. Fab job, huh? Give yourself a pat on the back. You got that right and you got that fast. That's nice. And once again, you guys are not even taking 30 seconds to ace this question. Now, why did I mention not even 30 seconds? You're absolutely spot on. The answer is indeed B. This means that in the exam, when you are going through the logical reasoning section, if you see any sentence jumbles, please make sure that you attempt these first. So these can also be part of language comprehension section. They did ask one sentence jumble some 4 years ago. So this should be a question that you go ahead and attempt first. After all, we start with easy, less time consuming questions and then move towards questions which are more time consuming or tricky. And with that, now let's dive into our last segment, which is course of action. So what is course of action? Let's see. So why don't you go ahead and attempt this question, and on the basis of the answers that I get, we can go ahead and dig deeper. Okay, so loads of A's, right? So is A right? Some of us have also chosen B, it seems. Or is it? Oh, B's could be the answer to the previous question, I reckon. A C, right. So the process is simple. In every course of action question, we are supposed to achieve something. So what do? First and foremost, we identify our objective or our objectives in that situation. Then we see which of these options allow us to meet our objectives. Then apart from objective, we also look at the costs involved and the risk involved. Okay, so how many of our resources it is going to take? Are there any risks involved? So you just think along these parameters and choose. So toddlers and babies often pick up habits from people around them without even realizing these habits might not suit them. Man, अभी मेरे को म्यूचुअल फंड वाले अपने ऐड बनवाने के लिए ले लेंगे. मैं इतनी तेज बोल सकता हूँ यार. So first, we should behave appropriately in front of children. Yes, because they pick up habits. So it definitely is something that should be done. Second, children's minds should not be subjected to our culture. This is absolutely irrelevant from this statement. What has this got to do with it? So therefore, second is not needed. And thus the answer should be option A that most of us have gone on to choose. Okay, but then your getting this right could have been a fluke. Let me give you a tougher question. Here it is, more difficult. Give me the answer, come on. Answers! You're making me impatient. लग रहा है अगर किसी फैकल्टी मेंबर को ADHD हो तो ऑनलाइन पढ़ाना कितना फाइट हो जाएगी यार. जब तक आंसर्स नहीं आएंगे तब तक बेचैनी हुई रहेगी. ओके. So let us see. What do we mean by implore? Implore is a very strong word, okay? It is a very strong word. It means to beg someone desperately to do something. Right? Beg, that too desperately. So, what is the objective here? The objective is that senior counsels should not appear in front of the vacation bench. Young lawyers should get that opportunity, right? And they had to implore, which means that they said it and they did not do it. Then they perhaps said it again, they did not do it. Then they begged, they did not do it. And now they've become desperate even in their begging. What's the next step? So first, the government should put a restraining order on those veterans who still come visit the vacation benches despite court's orders. Okay, so will it help us achieve our objective? Yes. Is there any cost involved? No, government should just need to release an order. Is there a risk? Not really, because at the max, the senior counsels will be upset. But if they're upset, what will they do? They'll stop appearing. But then that harms their own business. So there is not much of a downside here. So first can definitely be done. Second, the government should not intervene as long as the veterans help the newbies learn more about the law. Now see, the moment you move over from one course of action, forget that previous one. Look at this from fresh eyes. What is the objective here? The Supreme Court wants the young lawyers to learn the ropes, learn the craft. So, as long as these veterans help them learn more, the government shouldn't do anything. It's okay because that objective is being met, right? And therefore, if veterans are helping them learn, if it is true, even second, not doing anything also becomes viable. And that is why in this case we'd say we choose C, both follow as our answer. So that's about our course of action questions. So I hope I've managed to expose you to all the different verbal reasoning question varieties that get asked. We talked about odd word out and analogies in our previous session. In case you missed out on that, you can go ahead and watch it. So basically, if there is a particular area that bothers you more, make sure that you go and revise, and then let's not forget, keep practicing. And here is a schedule for our upcoming sessions in this CMAT Last Lap series. So today is Thursday, right? So at 3, you'll be with Salik sir to talk about GK. Tomorrow we have these 2 sessions. And a day after, you and I will meet once again where we'll pick up grammar in my session and logical reasoning in the session that is taken by Naveen sir. So don't forget to join us apart from those sessions, even on 4th of May, where we give you the live analysis of the exam, its pattern, the likely cutoffs, etc. for various colleges, and it will be taken by, of course, some of the absolute best top faculty members of the country that meet you regularly on BYJU'S Exam Prep platform. Additionally, if you or somebody else is thinking of preparing for CAT 23, we have started our comprehensive programs for that. Do consider joining these. And that's it from me. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe and join us for the rest of the sessions. And if you have any other questions, a little while ago I told you, reach out to us if you have concerns, logical connectives, etc. And in case you're wondering how to reach out to me, well, we are wherever you are. So just drop in a line and we definitely do our best to help you. Right? So that's it from me today. Until I see you next, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch and keep coming here. Take care.